Dennis Kucinich and I don't agree on much. He likes bigger government. He wants universal health care. And I'm not sure he ever met a tax he didn't like. But we do have some common ground. To find it, we have to travel to Iraq and Afghanistan. Joining me now, Congressman Dennis Kucinich. Congressman, you're not on board with the president when it comes to two wars we're fighting right now. You remember Springsteen. War, war. What is it good for? What's the answer, Congressman?
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Do you agree with the president's policies in the Middle East? Should we still be in Iraq? Should we still be in Afghanistan? Has our presence there made us any safer or enhanced our freedoms here at home?
Well, we're told we're getting out of Iraq, and I think the right direction is to get out of Iraq. Afghanistan, the surge has involved increased casualties for our troops, and now we're discovering that word of over $1 trillion in mineral deposits could cause the United States presence to become even deeper in Afghanistan.
Wait a minute, we would stay in Afghanistan just because we found wealth in the earth? I thought we were in Afghanistan in order to bring democracy to that medieval country. At least that's what two presidents have told us.
Underneath the democracy, there's gold and lithium and copper and other precious metals that may require our presence in order to build a democracy upon that soil. It's very dangerous for our Army to be involved in soliciting mining interests to begin to dig in Afghanistan, because what happens, excuse me, is that our soldiers end up being a kind of an extension of an international chamber of mining interests, and that's not what it's supposed to be about. Our men and women have their lives on the line there. We're told to protect democracy, and instead what's happening is their lives are being put on the line to open up markets for mining interests. This is not why we're supposed to be there. We have to get out of Afghanistan. It is a spreading stain on the soul of our nation.
Do you agree with the Tea Party movement when it says we need a more humbler foreign policy and we should not be fighting wars of opportunism, but only wars of defense?
Yes.
Dennis Kucinich agrees with the Tea Party movement in that respect.
Well, let me tell you something. I haven't been one of those who has castigated people who are involved in the Tea Party. I understand the concerns that exist about government which is not responsive. And I think that we have to be careful in characterizing people who sharply disagree with our foreign policy and who see that we have a higher purpose as a nation. We shouldn't be attacking each other on issues of national security and national honor. We should try to find out what's the best way to protect America. I happen to think having a strong domestic economy and not getting into foreign entanglements is the way to help secure our country, not to waste hundreds of billions abroad on wars that we should have never fought in the first place.
In the battle between liberty and safety, is it a balance between the two, or is there a bias in favor of liberty? What does Dennis Kucinich say?
Well, I agree with Benjamin Franklin, who said years ago, if you give up your essential liberties in order to provide a measure of security, you end up with neither. And I think that we have an obligation to defend our country. There's no question about that. But when we start to get into a direction where we entangle ourselves in alliances that are self-defeating, that have to do more with protecting narrow economic interests than they do with protecting the basic rights of Americans, we get into deep trouble. And our country's losing its way.
We understand.
We lost our way.
We understand from people that were present in the Oval Office earlier this week when the president and the vice president met with executives from BP, that Vice President Biden whispered into the ear of the chairman of BP, "Give us the $20 billion or we'll take it from you." Where would the government get the authority to take the $20 billion?
Well, actually, we do have authority over corporations. You know, we're government of the people, not government of the corporations. If corporate conduct goes against the public interest, the government has a whole range of tools by which it can intervene.
You are a defender of the Constitution, and the Fifth Amendment says if the government wants your life, your liberty, or your property, it has to follow due process, meaning it has to sue you. It can't just take it.
Well, you know, I'm a big believer in due process. I also believe that we have to find a way to protect our interest as a nation, and we're not doing that. You know, China hasn't lost a single soldier in Iraq or Afghanistan. China, however, has been moving into Afghanistan to try to get mineral rights. We are losing our ability to control our economy and to control our destiny by the application of military force in areas where we should not be.
Why are you the only prominent liberal in the country attacking the Obama administration for doing the same thing in the Middle East that the Bush administration was doing? Where are the rest of the liberals on this?
Well, to me, I haven't seen this as either attacking Mr. Bush or Mr. Obama. I see this as what the purpose of nationhood is. And our purpose should not become confused with empire. This was very clear right at the beginning of the founding of this country. We were not supposed to become an empire. We know what happens to empires. They eventually fail. We have needs here at home that are not being taken care of because we're squandering trillions of dollars on wars that we should have never been in the first place.
Why do you were once a hero to libertarians by your steadfast and principled resistance to the president's proposals on health care. At the last minute, you gave in. Why?
I saw it as being a bill that was deeply flawed. You have to remember something. Libertarians know this. I've always been for a single-payer system, and I still am. The bill we passed, that doesn't accomplish it. I don't think that health care, I think health care is a basic right, not a privilege based on ability to pay.
Can the government create rights, or do rights come from our humanity, Congressman Kucinich?
Oh, I think that rights come from a higher power, and that we're here to facilitate the work of that higher power, that we're not, there are innate human and moral rights. There's nature's God, as the Constitution and the Declaration points out.
You sound like Thomas Jefferson. Congressman Kucinich, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. In my opinion, one of the reasons Americans have put up with big government as long as they have is that each of the two political parties can point to the other side's wasteful spending and basically say, if they can get away with it, why can't we? But the result is that we don't really have a two-party system. We have a one big government party. It has a Republican wing that likes war and deficits and assaults on civil liberties, and it has a Democratic wing that likes welfare and taxes and assaults on commercial liberties. It doesn't care about your freedoms because when you exercise them, you are an obstacle to its power, and it will do anything to stay in power. The plain truth next. Find out what the government's done wrong this week, or at least as many errors as we have time for. Here's the plain truth. Californians passed a referendum earlier that will institute the so-called top two primaries. That means that in voting districts across California, whichever two candidates gets the most votes in the primary election are the only candidates to go on the ballot in the general election, even if they're both from the same party. In heavily Democratic districts, for instance, voters may find themselves picking between two Democrats in November. No Greens, no Republicans, no Libertarians, no one else. That's technically democracy, just not very much of it. Meanwhile, President Obama threatens to take over BP to punish it for the Gulf of Mexico oil spill. The president has said he doesn't like running banks or car manufacturers, and now perhaps he won't enjoy running an oil company either. Freedom Watch is your night watchman, keeping track of government. And since our last broadcast, it has spent about $68 billion, added another $7.5 billion to the federal debt. And in the House, introduced legislation to create a, quote, performance improvement council, unquote, that is intended to make government programs more efficient and effective. Good luck. We'll see you next week from New York, defending freedom. So long, America.